Hey guys, it's Gary. We're going to do a quick legal tip here on getting you paid. This is a scenario that's happening more and more these days. Market A is next door to Market B. You're an agent in Market A, and there's an agent in Market B. The agent in Market B has a client that has a house that is in Market A, and they want her to list the property. Now, you are a member of the MLS in Market A, and B is a member of the MLS in Market B. So she takes this house that's in Market A and she puts it in the MLS in Market B, but doesn't put it in the MLS in Market A. Well, you hear through the grapevine that this house exists and you got the client for it. So you provide a buyer, we provide the buyer here, and your buyer decides they want to buy this house. Well, you're all excited about it, except your buyer now does an end around and goes directly to this agent and works the deal out directly with that agent. So how do you get paid? Well, let's talk about that. First of all, we can't talk about the Real Estate Commission or LLR because 40-57 doesn't concern themselves with you getting paid. Remember, that statute on South Carolina real estate agents is all about protecting the public from real estate agents. It has nothing to do with you getting compensated. So that's the first thing that's completely out the door. So now we have to look at, can we go to an MLS or can I go to the Realtors Association? Well, first of all, let's talk about this first. First of all, who's paying you in a situation where you're a buyer's agent and there's a listing? It's not being paid by the seller. No, the seller and the listing agent have a contractual agreement that if the listing agent sells their house, seller will pay a certain fee to that listing agent. It's only because of the agreement in the MLS that you get paid. So if they're both members of MLS A, you both being members there have signed an agreement saying that if I list a property for sale in my MLS and somebody who's a member of my MLS brings me a buyer, I agree to pay a fee to them, a percentage of my fee based on what I have put into the MLS. So if you're both members of the MLS, you're going to pay it. But in this situation, we're separate members of separate MLSs. A is not a member of the MLS and B, and the B did not even put the listing in MLS A. So there's no cooperation agreement there about getting paid. So you're not going to get paid through the MLS. So now what do we have to do is look and see if there's a realtor association. Maybe I can file a procuring cause claim. Well, that's not going to work either because the National Association of Realtors, the Code of Ethics, requires you to cooperate with other agents, but doesn't require you to compensate other agents. So if you filed a procuring cause claim with the state association, it's probably going to get dismissed because they're going to say there's no agreement for compensation anywhere. There has to be some agreement. Typically where the agreement is through the MLS. Well, you're in separate MLSs, not members of each other's MLS, and their MLSs don't cross over like that. So there is no agreement that agents ever signed or put out to the public that they agree to pay you a commission. So how do you protect yourself? Well, there's two ways. One, hopefully you did it right in the first place, is that you took the Form 120 from the South Carolina Realtor Association and had a compensation agreement signed. You can take that form. It says that I, the listing agent, agree to pay the buyer's agent this percentage or this dollar amount if we're able to work out a deal on this. You get that signed when you, or before you submit the contract to them. That's how you handle it. And that way you are going to be protected. So they agree contractually to pay you. That's the easiest way. But let's suppose that you haven't done that. And so now you're at the end of the deal and the agent's not paying you. First of all, agent B is kind of foolish not to pay you. I think it's bad form. It's just not smart. And your reputation will get out in market A that if B ever tries to cross over again, she's never going to pay your commission. So don't deal with her. So it's really going to be a bad deal for B in the end if they are stupid enough not to pay you. But legally, they don't have to. So what are you going to do then? Well, at that point, the only person you have left to go after would be your client. And that's only if you signed a listing agreement or a buyer representation agreement. And that buyer representation agreement properly said that if I don't get paid by the listing agent, you agree to pay me X amount of dollars. But that puts you in a very precarious situation. Do you really want to sue your client? Nobody ever wants to sue your client. It's never a good idea to do so in most cases. So in most situations of this nature, you're going to have the end around and you're not going to get paid. So protect yourself, get agency signed when you're supposed to first. Second of all, if somebody's listing a property in your market, it's not on your MLS, or they're in your market and they're listing property and they're not putting on the MLS, make sure that you get this Form 120 compensation agreement signed. Hope that protects your commission, and I hope you have a great weekend.